The story begins as a boy named Jack wakes up in a forest, but he realizes he can't move, and a voice tells him that he's been reincarnated as an egg. The voice explains that it is one of his skills, and tells him about the rest of his stats and abilities. He wonders if he's in a game, but the voice can't tell him anything else, since he's still at level 1. He gets annoyed by this, but he suddenly falls from a tree, and the voice tells him he learned the falling resistance skill, and even earned the title of klutz. So he thinks he's being mocked, but he rolls down a cliff and almost falls into the water. He sees his reflection, and he can't believe it, because he really has become an egg. The voice tells him he's currently an F-ranked monster, and he will die if his shell is broken. The only thing he can do is roll, and as he rolls down the cliff again, his rolling skill reaches level 2, so he can now steer himself to avoid obstacles. But he falls and takes damage, and he realizes that he might die if he isn't careful, so he decides to rest for a while. That evening, he realizes he was able to recover, so he decides to get moving, and he wonders how he's supposed to hatch, since he's supposed to be able to turn into a dragon. He thinks he needs to level up to evolve, but he knows that he isn't strong enough to defeat enemies, since all he can do is roll. He sees a monster in the woods, and as he checks its stats, he learns that it's called a dark worm, but he realizes that it likes to eat eggs. It sees him hiding behind a tree, and it tries to eat him, so he panics and rolls away, but he notices that it won't stop chasing him. He realizes that he needs to defeat it, but he knows that he'll lose if he fights it head-on, so he needs to find a way to gain the upper hand. He leads the worm to the edge of a cliff, where he dodges its attack, causing it to fall. He realizes that it's his chance to defeat it, so he smashes it to the ground, and he thinks he won the fight, but he panics as it suddenly gets back up. He thinks he's doomed, but it suddenly collapses, and the voice tells him he has gained enough XP to reach level 5. It explains that he can now evolve, since he has reached the max level, but he realizes that he has 2 options. The first is to become a lesser dragon, which can grow to the size of a bear, and the adventurers fear it because of its fire breath. The second option is to become a baby dragon, which is much weaker and isn't suited for fighting, but it has the potential to evolve into different species of dragons. He thinks about choosing the lesser dragon since it's the safer option, but he suddenly hears another voice, which tells him to grow strong and aim for the top. The divine voice notes that it has reached level 2, so he wonders if it was the level 2 version he just heard, but he thinks it was something different. He considers his options, and realizes that the lesser dragon has lower growth potential, even though it's the safer choice, so he decides to pick the baby dragon. As he evolves, the voice tells him he has gained several new skills, and he also notices that his stats have improved, but he realizes that he needs to rest since his HP isn't full. He thanks the worm for helping him level up, but he notices that looking at it makes him hungry, so he thinks his dragon instincts are telling him to eat it. Even though he thinks it's disgusting, he feels like he'll recover his HP faster if he eats it, so he ends up forcing himself to eat it. The next day, Jack looks at his reflection, and we learn that he doesn't remember anything about his previous life, but he thinks he has been reincarnated into an RPG world. He sees worms surrounding him, so he cuts them down, and realizes that it's a lot easier to level up now that he's stronger. He reaches level 3, and learns a skill called Baby Breath, which he uses to burn the worms. He continues to hunt monsters, and when he reaches level 7, he learns the Dragon Punch skill, which destroys the target with his burning fist. He strangles a worm and reaches level 15, but he suddenly feels hungry again, so he realizes that he needs to eat, but we learn that he finds the worms gross, and he sees mushrooms on the ground, so he decides to eat them instead. After that, we see that he isn't feeling well since the mushrooms were poisonous, and the voice tells him his klutz skill has reached level 3, so he thinks it's mocking him again. He looks for other prey, since he doesn't want to eat worms again, and he suddenly sees a gray wolf. He realizes that he can defeat it since his stats are superior, so he uses his Dragon Punch to take it down, and cooks it with his Baby Breath. He notes that it smells like barbecue, and he's amazed by how delicious it is, so he enjoys his meal and continues to hunt gray wolves. He reaches level 20, and realizes that he can evolve again at level 25, but he notices that his progress is slowing down. He's getting bored since the divine voice is the only one he can talk to, and he suddenly hears people in the woods, but he can't understand what they're saying. He sees a party of adventurers, and realizes that he's stronger than them, but they can still take him down if they work together. He knows that he can't talk to them since he's a dragon, but he tries to attract them with his cuteness since he wants to be their friend. He sees them talking to each other, so he thinks his plan is working, but their leader Dawes suddenly attacks him, and their mage uses a spell to paralyze him. He realizes that they want to eat him, and thinks he's an idiot for trying to befriend them, but their healer suddenly feels sorry for him. So she stops her friends from killing him, and heals him with her magic, asking him if he's okay. He's grateful to her for saving his life, and her friends don't understand what she's doing, so they just walk on ahead. Jack sees that the girl's name is Maria, but she's running out of mana since she's healing him, and he knows that he can leave since his paralysis is about to wear off. But he decides to keep acting injured so that she'll stay with him, and the voice tells him he has received the liar title. She continues to talk to him, but he realizes that he's starting to understand what she's saying, and the voice tells him he has learned the Greek language skill. He thinks he'll be able to understand her better if he levels it up, but they suddenly hear her friends screaming, and she rushes to find them, but he stops her since he can sense a powerful monster nearby. He knows she can't do anything since she's out of mana, but she bids him farewell and runs off, so he tries to follow her, but he still can't move since his leg is paralyzed. After the paralysis wears off, he runs to look for Maria, but he sees a rank C monster called a little rock dragon, and he knows that he's no match for it. He realizes that it got Maria, but it suddenly turns its attention towards him, and he jumps away as it tries to crush him. He hides behind the bushes, and he's afraid since he knows that it can kill him, but he realizes that Maria is still alive. The monster prepares to finish her off, and he thinks about helping her, but he hears voices telling him to run away, since he will die if he tries to fight it. He knows he can't defeat it, but he thinks about how Maria saved his life, so he decides to help her. He charges at the rock dragon and hits its head, and he realizes that the mage is already dead, but Dawes is still alive. He attacks the dragon to make it angry, and he tries to lure it away, since he thinks it's the only way to save Maria and Dawes. But the dragon uses its tremor skill to knock him down, and he realizes that he needs to change his tactics, since he can't dodge all of its attacks. It prepares to bite him, but he rushes forward and smashes it with his dragon punch, and he thinks his attack was effective, but the dragon survives and suddenly recovers its HP. He realizes it's his chance to escape, so he grabs Maria and prepares to run away with her, and he also wants to save Dawes, but he knows he can only save one of them. The dragon tries to crush him again, but he manages to get away, and he realizes that Maria is still in trouble since she's bleeding. He knows he can't use healing spells, so he thinks about taking her to a safe place, and he smells other people nearby. So he starts looking for them, but a pack of wolves suddenly appear, and they immediately surround him. He realizes that he needs to fight them off, so he puts Maria down, but she wakes up as she hears them fighting, and she sees him protecting her. After that, we see that Jack is already exhausted, but he reaches a human village, so he tries to call for help. But the villagers see him roaring at them, so they think he's a threat, and one of them even stabs him. He tries to explain that he wants to save Maria, but they don't understand what he's saying, so he just puts her down and tells them to take care of her. But they still try to attack him, so he runs away, and he thinks Maria should be safe there, but he realizes that he won't be able to befriend humans since he's a dragon. The next day, Maria wakes up, and a girl named Marielle is glad that she's finally awake. She tells Maria she had to treat her wounds, since she was badly injured last night, and she wonders how long she's been out, so Marielle notes that she's been sleeping for 2 days. She asks Marielle about her companions, so she reveals that the mage is dead, and the villagers found his body in the woods. She knows that the rock dragon killed him, and she thinks Dawes is an idiot for picking a fight with it, but Maria asks her what happened to him. So she reveals that they couldn't find his body, but they think he was eaten by monsters, since there's no way he could have survived. Maria realizes that she was the only one who made it back, and she feels guilty for not stopping Dawes, but Marielle reminds her that he never listened to anyone. In a flashback, we see Dawes as he takes down a wolf that attacked the village, and the children praise him for defeating it, but he tells them he isn't there to impress them. We learn that he always protected their village from monsters, which is why the kids idolize him, but one evening, Maria sees him arguing with his friends, since they told him he can't beat the rock dragon. They remind him that he ran away the last time he fought it, but he tells them things are different now, and he's determined to prove them wrong. He invites Maria to join him as he hunts down the dragon, but she reminds him that Marielle told them to stay away from it, since it's the strongest monster in the area. He claims that he already got her permission and explains that he might die if he doesn't have a healer, so he needs Miria to join his party. So she decided to go with him, but notes that they must get away if things get too dangerous. Back in the present, Marielle notes that Daz's pride cost him his life, but she's amazed that Miria made it back to the village, especially considering how bad her injuries were. She doesn't remember how she made it back, so Marielle notes that the villagers saved her from a monster, but she explains that the rock dragon knocked her out. She thinks someone must have carried her to the village, and she remembers seeing Jack fight off the wolves, so she asks Marielle what the monster next to her looked like. But she explains that she didn't see it, since it already escaped by the time she got there, and Miria wonders if it was Jack. Meanwhile, Jack wakes up, and he notices that his wounds have already healed, since dragons heal faster than humans. He wonders how Miria is doing, and recalls that he was no match for the rock dragon, so he thinks he needs to get stronger. We see a worm hanging from a tree, and its friends arrive as it calls for help, but Jack suddenly sends them flying. He reveals that he used the worm's call for help skill to lure them all there, and the voice notes that he gained the wrongdoer title, which makes him think he's evil. But he promises not to use that method again, since he just wanted to defeat the worms to evolve, and he uses his flames to burn all of them. He finally reaches level 25, and the voice tells him he can now evolve, but it shows him the evolution tree, and he realizes that he has 5 options. The voice explains that the word little describes the size limitation of a particular species, and reveals that little dragons have fewer evolution paths and abilities, but their stats tend to grow faster. The first option is the mini dragon, which has the potential to evolve into a greater species, but its growth is slow, and it has limited evolution choices. The second choice is the mini angel dragon, which has the power to use white magic, but its fighting ability is limited. The third option is called the kid dragon, and we learn that it's a stronger version of Jack's current form, while the fourth one is the kid marble dragon, which stands out because of its ability to use magic. Jack finds all of the choices attractive, but he still can't make up his mind, and the voice tells him about the last option. It explains that the young plague dragon is the first stage of an evil dragon that spreads disaster, but he doesn't like it, since he doesn't want to become a villain. But the voice notes that it's extremely intelligent, and it can even transform into a human to visit villages, so he immediately changes his mind. He realizes that he can befriend humans if he picks the young plague dragon, but he doesn't want to become a villain, so he isn't sure if he should go with it. He thinks about it carefully, and he really wants the human transformation ability so that he can visit Miria's village. He decides to evolve into the young plague dragon, but he realizes that he looks evil, so he thinks he may have made a mistake. The voice notes that his view stats ability has reached level 3, so he can now review the details of his skills, and it tells him about the dark type moves he's learned. He doesn't want to use them since they sound terrible, but the voice notes that he leveled up his wrongdoer title and even gained a new one called Calamity. He wonders why he doesn't have a human transformation skill and asks the voice what he needs to do to learn it, but it explains that it still can't answer his questions. So he becomes depressed, but he asks the voice about his new skills, so it explains that one of them, called Dragon Scale Powder, allows him to spread a debilitating miasma by flapping his wings. The voice notes that it can wipe out entire civilizations at max level, and he accidentally kills a flower when he uses it, so he realizes he's become a biological weapon. The next skill, called Diseased Breath, allows him to spread a contagious illness that causes severe debuffs, and the voice notes that it can also wipe out civilizations. But he isn't happy with his new abilities, since he thinks the humans will be afraid of him, and he asks the voice about the titles he earned. So it tells him about the Itty Bitty Hero, which is a title he earned when he saved Miria, and the voice notes that it has a major influence on his evolution path. He thinks he won't turn into an evil dragon if he levels it up, and the voice tells him about the wrongdoer title, which slightly increases his damage for dark type attacks. But it makes learning white magic more difficult for him, and also influences his evolution path, so he realizes he messed up. We cut to Marielle, who explains that the warding stones create a barrier around their village, and Miria wonders if they prevent monsters from attacking them. So Marielle explains that they just act like charms, which encourage the monsters to stay away from the village, and it doesn't work on monsters that have a strong will. Miria keeps asking her about monsters, which makes Marielle wonder why she's obsessed with them, so she notes that a baby dragon may have saved her in the forest. Marielle wonders if she's starting to have feelings for it, so she explains that it isn't the case, and Marielle tells her how monsters evolve into different forms. She explains that they hunt other monsters to level up, and they evolve every time they reach their max level, allowing them to take on more powerful forms. Miria wonders how their ancestors learned about the monster's true nature, so Marielle reveals that special people who can hear divine voices appeared in the past, and they told the humans everything. She notes that monsters are driven to seek power, so she thinks it doesn't matter if a baby dragon saved Miria, since it might evolve into an evil creature and attack her the next time they meet. We return to Jack, as he notes that he'll do whatever it takes to level up, so that he can learn the human transformation skill and head to the village. He starts looking for weak monsters to defeat, but he suddenly realizes that he's surrounded by a web, and a giant spider appears behind him. He realizes that it's stronger than him, and it launches its web towards him, but he counters with his baby breath, which burns the web and sets its body on fire. He notices that it can't move, so he slashes it with his paralyzing venom claws, but he realizes that he didn't do much damage, and he even enraged it, so he decides to run away while it's paralyzed. But it immediately starts following him, and he can't believe its paralysis already wore off. He remembers that he learned the fly skill, so he decides to give it a try, but he wonders why it isn't working, thinking it's because his level is too low. He continues to run away from the spider, and the voice notes that his roll skill has reached level 3, but he realizes that they're about to reach a cliff. He considers turning back, but he thinks the spider won't be able to reach him if he makes it to the other side, so he decides to jump at full speed. He spreads his wings and glides to the other side, so he thinks he got away, but he wonders why it disappeared. He sees a web between the cliffs, and the spider lunges at him, so he freaks out and runs away. His roll skill reaches level 4, and he thinks it doesn't matter since he's running for his life, but he sees a wolf in front of him and sends it flying. The voice notes that he has reached level 3, and after he runs over the other monsters in his path, he notices that he's already at level 8. He thinks he can defeat the spider with his current stats, so he decides to fight it head-on, but it suddenly fills the area with poisonous gas. He jumps on a tree and realizes that he's still alive, since he has poison resistance, but he notices that the spider is waiting for him to drop dead. So he pretends that the poison got him, and the spider tries to finish him off, but he suddenly burns it and smashes it to the ground. The voice notes that he has reached level 14, and it tells him he learned a new skill called Dragon Tail, so he wonders if he also learned human transformation. But the voice has no comment, so he becomes depressed, wondering if he'll ever learn it. At night, we see Jack resting in a cave, where he prepares to eat a wolf for dinner, but he realizes that it smells weird. So he decides to add fruit juice to the meat, and as he takes a bite, he can't believe how delicious it is. After he enjoys his meal, he decides to make the cave his base, and gather the fruit he used as seasoning. But he knows that it's wet and sticky, so he considers drying it outside during the day, thinking it's the best way to preserve it. He wonders if his cooking skills will make him popular with the villagers, but he thinks it will never happen unless he gets the transformation skill, since he knows that he looks terrifying. Meanwhile, we see Miria talking to an old man named Bertz, who tells her he saw Dawes while he was fishing. He notes that Dawes was walking in the woods, but he didn't talk to anyone, and he just kept walking until he disappeared. The other villagers think Bertz was just seeing things, but Miria wants to look into it, so she asks Marielle if she can go to the forest. But she refuses to let Miria go there since it's too dangerous, and tells her not to worry, since she'll ask the guild to look for Dawes. The next day, we see Jack washing his face, but he sees a puddle on the ground, and thinks it must be a monster. He tries to check its stats, but his head suddenly starts to hurt, and the voice tells him his view stats skill can't give him information about it. His skill reaches level 4, so he tries to use it again, but its stats are blurry, and he freaks out, thinking that it might kill him. He runs into the woods, and he's glad he was able to get away from it, since he isn't sure if he can take it on. He sees a pot on the ground, and thinks he can use it to store fruit, but as he tries to pick it up, it suddenly attacks him. He realizes it's a monster, so he attacks it with his dragon punch, but he barely does any damage, so he decides to give it everything he has. But it completely restores its HP, and he realizes he can't kill it with his attacks, so he decides to throw it off a cliff. It screams as it falls to its death, and he reaches level 15, but the voice tells him he has earned the title Dastardly King, and his wrongdoer title has gone up to level 3. He sees more of the monsters behind him, and realizes that the one he defeated called its allies while it was falling, but they start to combine their powers, which makes him worried. But he realizes that all they did was stack on top of each other, so he takes the one on top, and sends it crashing into the others. He manages to kill all of them, and the voice tells him he has learned the skill Meteorite, so he realizes that the move he used counts as a skill. He reaches level 30, and his view stats and fly skills have also leveled up, but he realizes that he can't use the monster's pots since they're already broken. Jack continues to look around, and we learn that he's 10 levels away from his next evolution, but he still hasn't learned the human transformation skill. He suddenly hears footsteps and sees a bear walking around, so he wants to check its stats, but the voice tells him it can only give him details about the bear since he's too far away. He learns that it's called a clay bear, and it's a D-rank monster with a powerful recovery ability, but he wonders if it will turn to clay after he defeats it, since he wants to use it to craft items. He sneaks up on it and attacks it from above, but spikes suddenly appear from its body, so he panics and jumps away. It lunges at him, so he rolls back and strikes it from behind, and he notices that his attacks are effective, but it immediately regenerates. He thinks he needs to defeat it in one hit, and he considers using his Meteorite skill, but he knows that he can't lift the bear, so he sticks to his hit and run tactics. He smashes its back, and it uses its regeneration skill, but he thinks it will eventually run out of mana, so he will win the battle if he keeps attacking. But it suddenly surrounds itself with a sandstorm, and Jack notices that it now has spikes on its back, so he realizes he needs to change his strategy. He sees that it's now low on mana, and it throws spikes at him, but they melt after he dodges them, so he realizes that the clay softens when it's away from its body. He rips out its arm, which he molds into a ball, and he plans to use his Meteorite skill, but he isn't sure if he can kill it in one hit. So he decides to slam the ball into its head, and the voice tells him he has gained 3 levels for defeating it, but he's just glad that the fight is finally over. The voice adds that he learned the Nutcracker skill, so he realizes that the move he used turned into a skill, but he wonders what he should do with the clay. Jack returns to his cave, where he lights up the furnace he made using clay, and he decides to gather food while he waits for it to heat up. He looks around the forest and sees a lightning mushroom, but the voice tells him it has a paralyzing poison, so he throws it away. He approaches a giant flower, but it suddenly opens its mouth, so he quickly cuts it down. The voice tells him it's carnivorous, but it can't digest its victims' salts, so it stores them in its root, and he thinks he can use them to add flavor to his food. He notices strange mushrooms on the ground, and the voice tells him they're extremely valuable, but people have become addicted to them since they work like illegal drugs. So he decides to burn them, and the voice notes that his itty-bitty hero title has reached level 2. He sees spices around a tree, and the voice notes that they're incredibly popular among the nobles, so he wants to give them a try. We see that Miria is also in the woods, since she has decided to look for Dawes, and we learn that she blames herself for what happened, because she could have stopped him from leaving the village. A worm suddenly lunges at her, so she blasts it with her firebolt, and she thinks she'll be fine as long as she remains calm. She hides from the monsters, but as she heads deeper into the forest, she realizes it might get too dangerous if she goes further, so she decides to check the outskirts near the village before she heads home. Jack checks his furnace, and realizes it was able to heat the pots, so he uses it to cook the ingredients he gathered. He tastes the food and realizes it's delicious, so he enjoys his meal, but he notices that his bowl is hard to drink from, so he decides to make another one using the clay he gathered. He also thinks about making a spoon and covering the wall with bricks, so the voice tells him he has gained the title Ceramic Artisan. We see adventurers in a carriage, and their driver tells them they're close to the forest, so one of them wakes up her companion. They realize they've arrived at Noah's Forest, which is the place the guild wants them to investigate, and they prepare to take on their mission. Jack takes wolves to his cave and hangs their meat outside, but a group of monkeys eat them, so he becomes angry and scares them away. He realizes that he needs to do something about them, so he plans to poison his jerkies and let them eat it, so that they will stop bothering him. He reaches a field with poisonous flowers, and he plans to use them to decorate his cave, but he sees a monster, and realizes that it can also use poison skills, but it runs away, and suddenly reappears to bite him from behind. He realizes that he can't move his shoulder, and he can't believe it was able to poison him even with his resistance. It runs away and watches him as he struggles, and he realizes it used a special poison, asking the voice about it. but it explains that it can't answer his question since his view stats skill is still too low, and he wonders what he can do to get rid of the poison. He wants to know about the monster, so the voice explains that it was a poison princess, and notes that they poison their prey and leave them, but return to eat them after the poison takes effect. Jack learns that she eats poisonous substances to create a special venom in her body, and her bodily fluids serve as the antidote, so he realizes that he needs to capture her to get rid of the poison. He can still move thanks to his poison resistance, and he knows she's watching him since she's waiting for the poison to kill him. He starts to run away since he knows that she'll follow him, and he sees her jumping around, so he chases after her. She starts to roll away, but he knows they're approaching the cliff he jumped over when the spider was chasing him, and he thinks he can capture her when they get there. His roll skill levels up, so he thinks he can catch up to her, but she hits him with her clay gun, and he realizes she can shoot while rolling away. He continues to chase her, so she continues to shoot him, but he manages to dodge her attacks, and hits her as they reach the cliff. He realizes she's going to fall to her death, but since he needs her antidote, he jumps after her. The poison starts to affect him, but he endures the pain and catches her, telling her he'll do anything it takes to save her. He uses his flaming breath to propel them upward, but he reaches his limit and passes out. We return to Miria, as she hears Marielle calling out to her, so she quickly answers and wonders what she wants. She asks if Miria went to the woods, so she says that she didn't, and notes that she just went for a walk. Marielle thinks she's lying, but tells her not to worry, since the adventurers are already on their way. Jack wakes up, but he's surprised to see that the poison princess didn't eat him, and he realizes that she gave him the antidote. He thanks her for saving his life, and he starts to play with her, realizing she looks cute. At night, Jack takes the poison princess to his cave, where he shares his food with her, and he's glad that he finally made his first friend. He realizes she doesn't have a name, but thinks it isn't important, and tells her she can stay there for as long as she likes. She sees the poison he made for the monkeys, and he panics as she starts to drink it, but he recalls that she eats poison to produce her own venom. He thinks she finds it delicious, so he decides to taste it, but it makes him sick, and he wonders how she can eat it like it's nothing. The next day, Jack goes hunting with the poison princess, who shoots the wolves with her clay gun, while he rushes at them to finish them off. They easily defeat the wolves, so he tells her their teamwork is perfect, and they enjoy the rest of the day together. The following day, Jack eats spices in the forest, and he tells the poison princess to taste it, but she doesn't like it, and tells him she wants to eat something else. She leads him to a stinky mushroom, and the voice notes that it has a potent poison, but he doesn't want her to eat it since it smells like a rotting corpse. He destroys it with his fire, so she cries and starts to hit him, but he promises to make it up to her. She suddenly senses danger, and she uses her clay gun to attack a monster hiding behind the bushes, and there's a two-headed dog that appears. Jack realizes its stats are OP, and it can even use gravity magic, so he isn't sure if he can defeat it alone. He thinks it will use its tracking skills to catch them if they try to escape, so he decides to work with the poison princess to take it down, and she rushes to climb a tree. He tells her to poison it once he draws its attention, and he tries to punch one of its heads, but the other head almost bites him. It uses its gravity spell to immobilize him, and it rushes towards him to finish him off, but the poison princess hits one of its heads, and its spell wears off. He burns the monster with his fire, but it uses its recovery skill, and he realizes that the blue head uses magic, while the red one focuses on physical attacks. It prepares to cast another spell, and he thinks he's in trouble, so he decides to do anything it takes to stop it. The monster bites him, but he endures the pain, and hits the blue head with his dragon punch. He tells the poison princess to go for it, so she bites the monster's neck, and it tries to recover again, but it still takes damage because of the poison. So it cuts its head to stop the poison from spreading, and as Jack checks its stats, he realizes that it's enraged, and it also has a new sacrifice skill. The blue head starts to chase the poison princess, so she rolls away, and Jack wants to help her, but the monster gets in his way. He fights it head-on, and he manages to grab its head, so he throws it into the air and uses his nutcracker to finish it off. He starts to look for the poison princess, and he doesn't want anything to happen to her, since she's his only friend in this world. He's even willing to exchange his human transformation for her safety, but he sees blood on the ground, and he calls out to her. She comes out of the bushes, and the blue head suddenly tries to finish her off, but Jack stops it and smashes it to pieces. He's glad that the poison princess is still alive, and the voice tells him he has reached level 37, but he doesn't listen to it since he thinks it's ruining the moment. But it tells him he has finally learned the human transformation skill. We return to the village, where Miria notes that she has cleaned the entrance in the hallway, but she asks Marielle about her book. So she explains that it's about monsters, and she allows Miria to read it, so she opens it and sees the dark worm. She can't read anything since it's written in ancient text, so Marielle explains that the large script describes the monster's rank, and notes that even noobs can beat a dark worm since it's F rank. But it takes a trained adventurer to defeat a rank D monster, and only heroes and saints can take down monsters above rank B. Miria asks Marielle about the rock dragon, so she reveals that it's C-ranked, but it can get stronger with evolution. She doesn't think a normal human can defeat it, which is why she told everyone to stay away from the forest, but she notes that their guests have finally arrived, and they are joined by the adventurers. Marielle tells them about Dawes, and explains that he went missing after he left to fight the rock dragon, but she knows that Miria has been looking for him since she feels responsible for his death. Marielle asks them to investigate the rumors that he's still alive, so they leave to search the forest, and the demi-human Yuno wonders if they'll find proof that he's dead. Her companion Maltia notes that they might find his body, but explains that if they don't see anything after a few days, they can report that there was no suspicious person in the forest. We return to Jack, as he treats the poison princess's wounds and tells her to rest up, but he leaves her in the cave, since he's excited to test his human transformation skill. He heads to an open field, where he activates his new skill and looks at his reflection, but he's shocked to see that he still looks like a monster, so he throws a tantrum as he realizes that his skill was useless. He notices that his attack and defense are also halved, and it's even draining his MP, so he returns to his original form. Yuno and Maltia defeat a monster and continue to search the forest, but they still can't find Dawes, so they consider turning back. But they stumble upon Jack's cave, and Maltia thinks that the statues at the entrance contain magical power, so they wonder if it's a hideout for dragon worshippers. They decide to explore it, and realize there are light shrooms on the walls, but they're surprised to see a jar full of spices. Maltia knows they're expensive, so Yuno wants to take it, but Maltia is against it, since she thinks they might get into trouble. They see the poison princess, and Maltia knows that her venom is deadly, so she tells Yuno to stay back. The poison princess runs away, and Maltia thinks they're lucky she didn't attack them, but she thinks it's too dangerous to stay in the cave. We see Jack outside, and we learn that he saw the adventurers go in, but he wonders if they'll be impressed by the items that he's gathered. He knows they'll attack him since he's a dragon, but he thinks he can befriend them if he activates his human transformation, because he can use it to pretend that he's a demi-human. So he activates it and greets the adventurers, but they're afraid of him since he still looks like a monster. Maltia summons pillars of light to attack him, and realizes he's a plague dragon, but she tells Yuno they need to escape, since she's already low on mana. They run to safety, and they're glad he didn't follow them, since they know that plague dragons are dangerous. Yuno wonders if they should return to the village, but Maltia notes that they still don't have much to report, and explains that they need more manpower to continue their investigation, so they decide to call some friends. The next day, Jack tells the poison princess about the monkeys that steal his jerky, and notes that he wants to poison them to teach them a lesson. He explains that he needs a potent poison that has no color and smell, so she fills a jar with her venom, and he realizes it's perfect. He sets up a trap for the monkeys, and they panic as one of them gets poisoned, and he realizes it's his chance to get rid of them, so he starts to beat them up. They surround him to fight back, but the poison princess shoots them with her clay gun, and they realize they don't stand a chance, so they call for help. Their alpha rushes to their side, and Jack realizes it's just as strong as him, but it has a skill that strengthens its companions. He blasts it with his fire breath, but the monkeys are able to block it, and he struggles to avoid their attacks. The poison princess protects him, but the alpha grabs her and throws her away, so Jack rushes to save her. He knows they can't defeat the monkeys, and he asks the voice to tell him about the alpha. So it reveals that the alpha is a D+ rank monster that has evolved through battle, and it defeated the former chief to claim the top spot, but he thinks the information isn't helpful. He suddenly recalls that it has a telepathy skill, and he thinks he might be able to negotiate with it, so he threatens to kill the poison monkey if it doesn't listen to him. They start to talk telepathically, and he notes that the poison princess has the antidote, but she'll only give it to the monkey if the alpha lets them go. It tells him it's willing to sacrifice the monkey's life to defeat them, since they're a threat to their clan, and it notes that the monkeys value strength, so they leave the weak to die. But Jack challenges it to a duel, and it agrees to take him on, telling him the others aren't allowed to interfere, since the monkeys consider duels a sacred ritual. The poison princess cures the monkey, but the others suddenly take her, since they want to make sure she respects the rules of their duel. The alpha promises to release her if Jack wins the fight, and it starts to attack him, but he struggles to keep up with it, so he rolls away. It mocks him for running around, and he thinks the poison princess will be executed if he doesn't change his tactics, so he strikes the alpha with his tail, and follows up with a barrage of attacks. He realizes it's confused, but it suddenly activates its skill to boost its agility, and it starts to overpower him. But he knows he can't get away, so he decides to fight it head-on, and the monkeys cheer as they start to trade blows. We see that both of them are close to their limit, and they're about to clash again, but Jack dodges at the last moment and counters with his dragon punch. The alpha gets knocked down, so he thinks the fight is over, but the alpha suddenly hits him out of nowhere. They both fall to the ground, but Jack reaches level 39 for winning, and even gains the title of clan boss. When Jack wakes up, he remembers the fight, but he doesn't know what happened after he was knocked out. He checks his stats, and notices that he leveled up, so he realizes he beat the alpha, but he wonders how the poison princess brought him to the cave. She looks at the monkeys, and he thinks they're there to avenge the alpha, but he wonders why they're acting like he's the boss. He realizes it's because of his new title clan boss, but the poison princess doesn't trust them, but he tells her not to fight, since they just want to be his followers. He's surprised to see food outside his cave, and realizes they gathered it for him, so he praises them for their hard work, but they tell him they want the jerky. He allows them to eat it, and notes that he doesn't need to go out hunting, but he needs to refresh his supply of jerky. He starts to work on it, but notices that a monkey is watching, so he decides to teach it how to cook. He shows how he cuts the meat into pieces, and he places it in a pot, where he adds the salt and spices. He mixes them and allows the meat to absorb the flavor, and he tells the monkey to make jerky for him, but he suddenly gets a strange feeling as the poison princess walks past him. He wonders what's wrong with her, but he's glad he can leave everything to the monkeys, since he now has time to do whatever he wants. He thinks he needs more pots since he has new roommates, so he starts to mold clay, but a monkey watches him and has no idea what he's doing, so he explains what he's making. The monkey wants to give it a try, and he realizes they have long fingers, so he thinks they're better suited for the task. He shows the monkey how it's done, and points it to the clay, as he orders it to make pots for him. He's glad he now has someone in charge of the clay, but he notices that the poison princess is also trying to make pots, so he tells her she can't do anything with her tiny hands, which causes her to cry. Jack shows the monkeys the clay tools he made, and orders them to widen the cave, but we see the poison princess watching them, and she seems to be jealous. We cut to Meltia and Yuno as they wait for their friends at a tavern, and they discuss their encounter with Jack. Yuno notes that she's afraid of him, and Meltia thinks they should look into the forest, since his cave was suspicious. The next day, the poison princess wakes Jack up, and he realizes his body feels heavy since the monkeys are clinging to him. He complains about their smell and tries to wake them up, but it doesn't work, so he just goes back to sleep. He wakes up as he hears them screaming, and realizes that the poison princess poisoned one of them, so he asks her why she would do that. He tells her to cure the monkey, and it immediately recovers, but he notices that she's frustrated. He explains that he can understand why she doesn't like them, but notes that she went too far when she poisoned them, and she points him to a pot, which makes him realize she wants attention. He invites her to go hunting with him, which makes her happy, and he thinks she'll feel better after they spend the whole day together. Jack knows that he's just one level away from evolving again, so he wants to farm XP and get stuff for the cave, but he notices that the poison princess is still sad. He notes that the monkeys are having a good time, since they're playing around with their weapons, and he tells her to let him know if she finds a monster. She walks away and continues to ignore him, so he wonders if he did something wrong, and she suddenly senses danger as wolves come out of hiding. She prepares to take them on, but the monkeys beat them up, and Jack thinks they're amazing, but she's angry since they stole her prey. We see Miria in the forest, as she wonders why she hasn't heard from the adventurers, because it's been days since they went into the woods. She heads deeper into the forest, and she finally finds Dawes, so she runs after him, but she stops as she sees monsters staring at her. We return to Jack, as he apologizes for not giving the poison princess attention, but he explains that he can't ignore the monkeys since he's their boss now. He promises to tell them to stay in the cave the next time they go hunting together, which makes her happy, and he tells her she's the most important thing in his life. But they suddenly hear Miria screaming, and he realizes she's in trouble. He thinks about saving her, but he's worried that her companions might attack him, as he recalls how the other humans tried to kill him. He decides to save her anyway, and tells the poison princess to wait for him, but she follows him anyway, so he speeds up and tries to leave her behind. She catches up to him, but he tells her it's dangerous to go that fast at her current level, and she crashes into a rock. He asks her if she's okay, and realizes she took damage, but he thinks she'll be fine since she still has a lot of HP. She doesn't want him to leave her, but he thinks Miria will die if he doesn't do anything, and she cries as he rolls away. The voice tells him that his itty-bitty hero and wrongdoer titles have leveled up, but he just hopes that Miria is okay, and we see that she's surrounded by wolves. One of them lunges at her, but Jack suddenly arrives to save her, and he's glad he made it in time. He notices that she doesn't recognize him since he looks different, and as the wolves surround him, the voice notes that they're de-ranked monsters called Mao wolves. It reveals that they use their third eye to share visual information with the pack, so he thinks their friends will arrive soon, and he tries to check their stats. But the voice tells him his view stats skill is still at level 5, so it can only give him limited information. He realizes that their status windows are blurred, and he can't understand what's written on them, but the wolves rush forward, so he smashes them with his fists. Miria is afraid of him, and he tries not to move his wings, since he might kill her with his miasma. He's glad she's okay, and he tries to talk to her, but the voice notes that he has reached level 40, and he thinks it's ruining his moment. As she watches him rant, she realizes that he's the baby dragon who saved her, so she tries to communicate with him, and he notices that she's trying to copy what he did when he first met her. They immediately form a connection, but they stop as they see more wolves approaching, so he tells her to get on his back, and he starts to run away with her. We see Marielle as she talks to a man named Gregory, who reveals that he's searched the village, but he couldn't find Maria, so Marielle realizes she went to the forest. She decides to look for her there, and orders him to stay in the village, since Maria could return at any time. Meltia's friends arrive, and she explains that she called for their help, since the forest is dangerous. They're ready to investigate it, but she notes that they need to meet their client first, and ask for her permission to proceed as a party. We return to Jack, as the wolves continue to chase him, but he sees a narrow passage, and thinks he can protect Miria while he fights them there. He hides her behind a rock, and the wolves lunge at him, but he burns them with his flaming breath. One of them survives the attack, and it prepares to bite him, so he cuts it down, but wonders why it didn't try to retreat. He continues to run with Miria, and wonders what he should do next, since he thinks the humans will attack him if he brings her to the village. He doesn't know why she's alone in the forest, and he wants to ask her what she's doing there, but she can't talk to him because of the language barrier. He thinks about taking her to a safe place near the village, but she suddenly hugs and thanks him, and he's happy since he understands what she said. The voice shows him the evolution tree, and he realizes there are 4 different paths, but he wonders why there's no plague dragon evolution. The voice explains that it can't give him the reason, but he notes that it doesn't matter, since he doesn't want to become a plague dragon anyway. The first option is the dark Drago human, which is categorized as a demi-human, and he can't imagine what it looks like. But he recalls that his human transformation was useless, so he isn't sure if he can befriend humans in that form. The second option is the rolling dragon, which specializes in speed, while the third one is the little arc dragon, which has the power to use white magic. Jack thinks they're both good options, but the voice tells him about the last option called the Jormungand, which is a giant snake covered with a deadly poison. We learn that it destroys everything it touches, and he thinks it's a terrible option since the humans would be terrified of him. Miria points him to a lake, and they decide to rest there, as he wonders which option he should pick. The snake is an instant pass for him, but he thinks the other evolution paths are interesting, and he doesn't know which one to choose. He asks for Miria's advice, but she can't understand what he's saying, and she tries to talk to him. His Greek language skills suddenly levels up, and he starts to understand what she's saying, which makes him happy. She sees him smiling, and realizes they can finally communicate, so she plays with him in the water. She reveals that she went to the forest alone to look for someone, and he uses hand gestures to ask her if she's referring to Meltia and Yuno, so she notes that Dawes is the one she's looking for. Jack knows that he was killed by the rock dragon, and he wears a grass wig, which makes her realize that he knows Dawes, since he was the baby dragon who saved her. As she hugs him, he thinks he should become a demi-human so that he can spend more time with her, and she decides to call him Alucia, telling him it's the name of her favorite flower. He thinks it sounds nice, but the voice asks him if he wants to accept it as his nickname, and explains that he can't change it once he confirms it. He decides to go with it, since Miria was the one who came up with it, and she's glad he likes it. But they suddenly hear heavy footsteps, and he thinks it's coming from the rock dragon. Jack tells her to get on his back, and they make their way to the village, but a wolf suddenly starts to chase them. He realizes it has a skill called magic energy reception, so he wonders if someone's controlling it, and he slaps it with his tail, but he sees a pack of wolves in front of him. Miria is surprised to see Dawes riding their alpha, and Jack checks his stats, but wonders why his skill list is empty. The alpha prepares to eat her, so Jack stops it, and Dawes swings his sword, but Miria stops him with a fireball. Jack punches the alpha, so Dawes is knocked down, but he clings to an egg and orders the other wolves to attack. Jack prepares to take them on, but he suddenly hears the footsteps again, and Miria realizes that the egg belongs to the rock dragon. Dawes runs away with the egg, but Jack realizes he's headed to the village, and she thinks the rock dragon will destroy it if he takes the egg there. She tells Jack they need to give the egg back, so they run after Dawes, as Jack wonders why he's working with the monsters to destroy the village. He sees the wolves chasing him, and thinks he can't defeat them with Miria on his back, but she tells him to leave her behind and stop Dawes. He knows she'll die if he leaves her, so he decides to fight while protecting her, but the alpha bites him, but he manages to knock it up and slam it into the ground. The other wolves head straight for Miria, so he tries to stop them, but one of them manages to hit her. After he defeats all of them, he tells her everything will be okay, and she begs him to save the village, but he decides to do it while protecting her. We see Gregory in the village, where he hears the rock dragon scream, and Marielle also hears it, but she thinks she needs to find Miria before it gets dark. Dawes continues to make his way to the village, and Jack is determined to stop him, since he thinks it's the only way to save everyone. A wolf appears at the village, so Gregory wonders why the warding stone didn't keep it away. The wolf jumps at him, but he manages to take it out with his spear, but as he crawls out from underneath it, he suddenly sees Jack. He tells Jack to stay back, but Miria quickly explains that Jack is here to help, asking him to believe in her. Gregory seems to recognize him, and Jack remembers that he was the one who stabbed him. Miria tells him that Jack is also able to understand them, so Gregory decides to trust him and apologizes for attacking him in the past, so Jack thinks he's a good guy. Gregory mentions that Dawes ran past him, and they suddenly hear the rock dragon's roar, so Miria tells Gregory about Dawes' plan to destroy the village using the egg. She thinks they need to hurry, and Gregory decides to join them, since he'll be able to help when the other villagers get scared seeing Jack, so Jack tells him to hop on. Meanwhile, the other villagers wonder about the roar, and they suddenly see Dawes approaching. The villagers are shocked when they see Jack, but calm down when they see Miria and Gregory riding him. They ask them if they saw Dawes, and one of them mentions that he was headed to the watchtower. The rock dragon continues to get closer, so Miria thinks they need to hurry, but Gregory tells her to evacuate the other villagers, while he goes on with Jack. He mentions that she's injured, and Jack doesn't want her to be in any more danger, so he agrees that she should go. She tells them to be careful, and they quickly rush off, while Gregory can't believe that the baby dragon really evolved and turned into a plague dragon. He promises to introduce Jack to everyone in the village after everything is over, so Jack is excited that his dream is about to come true. Dawes cuts down a man at the watchtower, and the other villagers wonder what's wrong with him. Jack and Gregory arrive, and Gregory tells the others to evacuate, since the rock dragon is headed their way. As everyone runs, there's a kid that's left behind, and Dawes suddenly attacks Gregory. Jack is able to defend himself, and even blows Dawes away, but he struggles to finish him off, thinking he would be a real monster if he killed him, so he knocks him out instead. Gregory is glad seeing this, but Dawes suddenly gets back up, and he takes the kid hostage. Jack wonders what he can do in the situation, and Dawes picks back up the egg. A slime suddenly comes out of his mouth, pulling him up onto the tower, and Jack wonders what's going on. The rock dragon finally appears, and Gregory thinks Dawes is about to smash the egg, so Jack quickly flies at him. But he throws the boy, so Jack is forced to go after him instead, while Dawes uses the chance to smash the egg, and the rock dragon becomes enraged. Meanwhile, Marielle meets up with Maria, and she wonders what's going on, so Maria explains the situation to her. Dawes is crushed by the rock dragon, but it's still pissed off, so Jack tells Gregory to take the boy away, since he plans to fight it, and Gregory tells him not to die. Jack thinks about the people he's protecting, so he can't afford to lose. He sees that the rock dragon is stronger than before, so he isn't sure he can win, but he thinks he can at least buy time for everyone to escape. He attacks it with his dragon punch, but it only hurts his own hand, and even his breath has no effect. He tries using his meteorite skill, but even that doesn't work, and he ends up getting knocked down. He thinks it's all over for him, but Gregory and some villagers come back to help. He charges in with his spear, while the others shoot it in the eye, and Jack kicks it in its neck, but he sees that they barely did any damage. The rock dragon uses its tremor skill, which kills one of the villagers, and pins Gregory, while Jack is also smashed to the ground. He wonders if there's anything he can do, but the divine voice levels up to level 4, and it tells him he should run. But it knows that he won't, so it tells him that it had fun watching him, because it thinks this is the end for him. Jack wonders about the true nature of the voice, but it still can't explain itself, and Jack decides to prove it wrong. He remembers he can still evolve, so he thinks about what he should pick, wondering which one will give him the best chance at winning. He suddenly unlocks a simulation skill, and the voice tells him the odds of what will happen. If he chooses the little arc dragon, he only has a 4% chance of winning, while as a Jormungand, he'd likely be able to draw with the rock dragon, but the village would still be destroyed. As a rolling dragon, he won't be able to win, but he would have a 99% chance to escape. He curses the voice as he wonders why it's telling him all of this, and his body suddenly starts to glow. Yuno and her friends hear a loud noise coming from the village, so Meltia notes that they need to hurry, and we see that the villagers have set up camp. Marielle wonders if everyone has been evacuated, but Maria notes that there are still villagers who haven't shown up, and they see the boy Jack saved. They patch him up, and Marielle wonders where Gregory is, so a man tells her he left to stop the rock dragon. She decides to look for him, and Maria wants to go with her, since she thinks there are people in the village who need healing. We return to Jack, as he thinks about evolving into the little arc dragon to heal Gregory, but the voice notes that he only has a 1% chance of saving him if he chooses that option. He decides not to listen to it, and smashes the rock dragon in the head, causing it to fall to the ground. He approaches Gregory and prepares to evolve, but he tells Jack not to worry about him, and wonders why a plague dragon is helping humans. He wants Jack to eat him, since he thinks it will help him unlock his true power, and Jack refuses to do it. But he realizes that the reason he can't turn into an adult plague dragon is because he hasn't strayed from the righteous path. Gregory feels guilty for stabbing him when he saved Maria, because he's now convinced that Jack is a good dragon. But he thinks Jack can't beat the rock dragon since he hasn't taken a human's life, and tells him to protect the village after he unlocks his true power. He cries as he cuts Gregory's head off, and a villager named Oris panics as he sees everything. The voice tells Jack that his wrongdoer title has leveled up, along with his calamity and dastardly king titles, so he can now evolve into an adult plague dragon. The voice notes that it's an evil dragon responsible for countless deaths, and it's also one of the 3 great calamity monsters, but Jack decides to go with it. His body transforms, and he turns into a massive dragon, but Oris freaks out and runs away. Jack prepares to fight the rock dragon, and he's determined to defeat it, since he doesn't want Gregory's sacrifice to be in vain. He clashes with the rock dragon, but he gets pushed back, and he realizes it's still stronger than him. He uses his wings to lift its head, and attacks with his claws, but he can't break through its skin. He flies through the woods, and they reach an open area where he plans to defeat it. Marielle reaches the village, but realizes the rock dragon is gone, and she sees Oris, so she asks him about Gregory. He shows her Gregory's body, and notes that he was killed by Jack, but Maria doesn't believe Oris, so he explains that he saw it with his own eyes. He notes that Jack evolved after he killed Gregory, and flew away while he fought the rock dragon, but Maria thinks Oris is lying. Marielle calms her down, and tells her they need to treat the wounded, but she thinks they're doomed if the dragons return. Jack hits the dragon with his new skill Whirlwind Slash, and he realizes it's effective, but he notices that he has another new skill called Neckbreaker. He thinks about giving it a try, but the rock dragon charges at him, so he flies away, and realizes it still has 200 HP. He wonders if it has a weak spot, and thinks it must be the head, so he smashes it with his tail and crushes its eye. He realizes he was able to blind it, so he thinks defeating it should be easy, but it suddenly makes its way to the village, so he goes after it. Marielle heals the injured villagers, but notices that Miria is gone, and Marielle thinks she left to look for the dragons. Jack grabs onto the rock dragon, but it starts to hit him, and he realizes he isn't strong enough to push it back. He flaps his wings, and his poison affects the dragon, causing it to extend its neck. He notices that its neck is smaller than the rest of its body, so he thinks it must be the weak spot, and he smashes it with his neckbreaker. The dragon crashes to the ground, and Jack reaches level 19 for defeating it, but he collapses from exhaustion. Miria calls out to him, and he can't believe she still recognizes him after he evolved, but Marielle attacks him with her light magic, and tells Miria to stay away from him. She protects him instead, so Marielle tells her he killed Gregory, but she thinks there must be a misunderstanding, and he realizes she believes in him. His poison starts to affect her, and he thinks he can no longer hang out with her, since he has turned into a dangerous monster. He pushes her back and flies away, and Miria heals her, telling her she was hit by his poison. Jack returns to the lake, and thinks his new form looks amazing, but his body is stiff since he still hasn't recovered from the fight. He sees a flower, and the voice tells him it's an Alicia, so he realizes it's Miria's favorite flower. The voice adds that it only blooms where monsters live, so it's difficult to gather, but the humans think it makes an excellent gift, since it symbolizes bravery and heroism. He thinks his nickname doesn't suit him, so he wants to erase it, but the voice tells him it can't be changed since he already confirmed it. He realizes he isn't the kind of dragon he wanted to become, so he starts to question his existence, and he hears a strange sound, but he ignores it since he no longer cares about anything. Meltia and her friends see the remains of the rock dragon, and wonder if the villagers are safe, so Yuno notes that she can sense humans nearby. We see Miria and Marielle as they treat the wounded, and Miria wonders why Jack pushed her away, but Meltia and her friends suddenly join them. They ask Marielle what happened, so she explains that Jack fought the rock dragon, and Yuno is afraid of him, but Marielle tells her not to worry, since he already flew into the forest. She notes that there are villagers who are still missing, so Meltia and her friends promise to find them, but Miria decides to join their party, since she knows they don't know their way around the village. We return to Jack, as he wakes up and sees the poison princess, and he's glad that she still recognizes him. He realizes he lost consciousness, and apologizes for leaving her behind, so she forgives him, and he's glad they're together again. He knows that the villagers think he's an evil dragon, and he's worried that his poison might affect her and the monkeys, so he thinks he can no longer be around them. He plans to leave the forest, but wonders how Dawes turned into a zombie, and he wants his friends to live in peace, so he decides to look for answers before he leaves. He takes to the sky, but suddenly senses a strange presence, and he sees the slime as it makes its way to the village. He checks its stats, but the voice tells him he can't do it at his current skill level, and he recalls that its stats were blurry when he last saw it. He wonders why Dawes and the Mao Wolves also had blurry stats, and he thinks the slime is suspicious, so he wants to learn more about it. He sees its skills, and realizes it can transmit and receive magic energy just like the Mao Wolves, but he wonders why it has human skills like Greek language and swordsmanship. He recalls that Dawes didn't have skills when he last saw him, and he even saw the slime come out of his body, so he wonders if it can steal people's skills and control them. He thinks it must be the mastermind, so he prepares to take it on, and tells the poison princess to escape if it gets too dangerous. He dives toward it, but it creates a smokescreen and suddenly disappears, so he challenges it to come out and fight him. There are two kids that appear out of nowhere, and they wonder how they got there, so Jack becomes confused. One of them suddenly attacks him, but he manages to dodge it, and realizes that the slime is controlling them. It notices that he got stronger after he evolved, and reveals that it still remembers him, since it watched him even before he became a plague dragon. The poison princess attacks with her clay gun, which pierces through its body, but its HP instantly recovers, so Jack thinks he needs to defeat it in one hit. It explains that it doesn't want to fight him, but he knows that it controlled Dawes and destroyed the village, so he wants to make it pay. It realizes he's interested in the villagers, so it shows him the people it consumed, revealing that he ate the kids when they went to the forest, but didn't learn a new skill from them. He doesn't recognize the people it murdered, but it transforms into Dawes, and reveals that it controlled him to provoke the rock dragon into attacking the village. It explains that it consumed the villagers killed by the dragon, since it wanted to learn their skills, so Jack realizes he was right about it, and notes that he'll punish it for destroying the village. It wonders if he's mad since he also wanted to eat humans, and invites him to look for something to eat together, but he explains that they have nothing in common, and notes that he'll do whatever it takes to defeat it. He burns it with his scorching breath, and uses his meteorite skill to throw it down the cliff before it can recover. The voice tells him his meteorite skill has leveled up, so he thinks the fight is over, and prepares to leave with the poison princess. But he realizes it's still alive, and a spider climbs up the cliff. Meanwhile, Meltia's party looks for survivors, and Yuno finds people buried under the rubble, so they take them to Marielle. Meltia thinks there are other survivors, so they need to continue searching, but Marielle tells Maria not to run off again, since she knows that Maria still trusts Jack. She reminds her that he killed Gregory and attacked her, but Maria thinks he had a good reason, so she wants to learn the truth from him. Marielle explains that a human and a monster can never understand each other, and notes that Jack is one of the 3 great calamity monsters, but Meltia thinks they should let Maria talk to him. She knows that even if they convince Maria not to do it, she will still try to look for him, and Meltia offers to go with her. Marielle thinks she's crazy, but she explains that they need to track his movements for the village's future, and notes that she's willing to risk her life for them. Marielle realizes she has a point, so she allows them to do it, but tells Maria to keep herself in line. We return to Jack, as he realizes that the spider is the slime, and the poison princess shoots it with her clay gun, but it immediately regenerates. It realizes it has no choice but to fight, and she hides behind the trees, but the slime combines its flame slash and shockwave to destroy them. It launches its flames at Jack, who endures them and rushes forward, and the slime tells him it's useless, but he manages to close the distance. He slices it in half, and thinks the upper portion is its main body, so he rips it to shreds. He thinks the fight is over, but the slime suddenly regenerates, and notes that he failed to destroy its core. They continue to clash, and the slime wants to end the fight, but Jack smashes its body, so it thinks it needs to kill him and take his skills. It creates a giant blade and prepares to attack, but the poison princess suddenly appears, and it realizes it forgot about her. It knocks her down and prepares to finish her off, but it suddenly starts to feel strange, and Jack realizes she was able to poison it. He tells her to escape, but it casts a spell to slow her down, and it grabs onto her, so he rushes to save her. It creates another smoke screen, so he blows it away with his wings, but he's surprised to see her trapped in a crystal. He realizes that it's draining her health and MP, so he smashes it with his fists, but it doesn't break. He's worried that she might die if he uses his nutcracker, but he comes up with an idea, and combines his whirlwind slash with his dragon punch. He manages to destroy the crystal, and he tells the poison princess it's over, because the slime will die thanks to her poison. It suddenly appears behind them, and he realizes it has already recovered, since it stole her ability to neutralize poison. It transforms its body into a malwolf and tells him to give up, but he knows that it will kill everyone if he lets it go, so he refuses to back down. He realizes the slime also has the ability to view stats and skills, since it knew that the poison princess had the ability to neutralize poison, and it reveals that it can also hear the divine voice. It notes that it's doing exactly what the voice wants him to do, which is to keep getting stronger until it becomes the apex predator, so Jack realizes they aren't so different. It thinks he has given up on fighting, so it prepares to head to the village, but he notes that he won't let it leave, and surrounds the area with his fire. We see Meltia with Marielle and Maria, as she tells them she saw Jack before, but he was in a humanoid form. Marielle wonders why she didn't tell everyone about it, so she explains that it had nothing to do with their quest, but she decided to call her friends since she knew he was dangerous. She apologizes for being away when the rock dragon attacked the village, but Marielle tells her it's okay, and notes that no one could have predicted what happened. Meltia smells something burning, and they see smoke from a distance, so Maria thinks Jack must be there. We return to Jack, as the slime realizes he won't back down, so it starts to grapple with him, but he launches his whirlwind slash. The slime summons a vase to block it, and notes that the voice rules the world, so they must listen to what it says, but Jack explains that he'll continue to fight for what he believes in. He dives toward the slime, but it surrounds itself with spikes, and he knows that its stats aren't impressive, but it has a skill that counters all of his moves. It admits it can't defeat him alone, since it doesn't have a strong finisher, so it calls for backup, and he thinks it plans to use the Mao wolves to create an opening. It reaches out its hand, and he realizes it's training a wolf's MP, so he cuts its arm off. The wolves charge at him, so he knocks them down, and thinks he got all 3 of them, but another one lunges at him. He takes it out and realizes it's real, so he thinks one of the other wolves is the slime in disguise, but it suddenly comes out of hiding and stabs him with its spikes. It tells him it will consume him, and it starts to enter his body, telling him it's over, but he refuses to admit defeat. He resists it and starts to fly away, but it wonders what he's up to, and Miria's group sees him as he reaches the sky. The slime thinks he plans to throw him down the cliff again, so it starts to mock him, and it attacks him with its spikes. It notes that it will take his skills, and promises to put them to good use, telling him it will spread his poison to destroy the village. He looks down and sees Miria and the others, but he grabs onto the slime, and starts to dive at full speed. It has no idea what he's up to, so he reveals that he has decided to put everything on the line, to crush it with a full-power nutcracker. It tells him he won't survive either, but he explains that he doesn't care what happens to him, and they continue to accelerate. It panics and begs for its life, but he knows it won't stop killing until he gets rid of it, and it clings to him for dear life, but he manages to pull it off his body. Miria and the Poison Princess watch them as they fall into the cliff, and Jack slams the slime against a rock, creating a shockwave so powerful that it dries up the river. Miria and the others look for Jack, and they see him at the bottom of the cliff, but the ground suddenly shakes as the water flows back into the river. Everyone watches helplessly as he gets swept away, and Miria starts to lose it, but Marielle calms her down. The group returns to the village, and Marielle tells Miria to rest, while Yuna wonders what happened, so Maltia notes that they saw Jack in the forest. Marielle explains that there's much they don't know, and she thinks Miria wants to leave the village to explore the outside world, so she asks Maltia to help her. Meanwhile, in Jack's cave, the Poison Princess tells the monkeys they'll watch over the place until Jack returns, and they promise to do their best. Jack wakes up, but he's surrounded by darkness, and he sees a crack, so he wonders if he turned into an egg again. But we see that he was just buried in sand, and he realizes he's in the middle of nowhere, so he wonders how he'll make it back to the forest. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.